Hi, my name is Ashley Middleton, and I'm a student at Grand Canyon University. I want to talk a little more about inclusion in the school setting. And one of the quotes from this article is that inclusion means more than just being in. So what we're talking about is how do we plan for inclusion to actually happen, not just a student being pushed into a general education classroom, which happens in a lot of cases. Districts mean well, schools mean well, but if the student isn't actually a part of the curriculum, learning any of the curriculum, they're just there socially, but the social part of it is actually not being taught. It's just supposed to be absorbed like osmosis or something. That's where we have some of the issues with inclusion happening because it's not inclusion, it's just being in the general education room. Other things, models we've seen has been students being included or in the general education classroom where the paraprofessional doing completely different tasks and work the entire time. Um, and it's not geared toward having that student have more interactions with their peers while they're in the general education classroom. It's not geared toward them having more access to the curriculum that's being taught in the general education classroom. It can be a standalone, completely different curriculum being done at the same time as the independent work in the general education classroom. So the student is there, there's 20 minutes of a lecture, people are broken into pieces, not pieces, broken into groups. And then when the group work starts, the paraprofessional is working with that individual with disabilities on something completely different or something slightly related to what the rest of the classroom is doing. So we want to go beyond that when we look at inclusion. So this is a different model of inclusion. Again, this access model of inclusion is all about how are we planning to include using these five different questions, okay? So what's going on in that general education classroom in that routine for that week? And notice I said week, not whole year, not month, but for that next week. What are students without disabilities going to be doing to participate in the instructional routine? What are students with a disability going to do to participate in the same way in all of the components of the instructional routine? Or does the student need an alternative way to participate? Then we have what supports will the student need to participate if they're using an alternate means? And here is the big one. Who will prepare the supports? A lot of times when I've been in planning meetings, when I've been in um, what you call it, department meetings, when I've been in different type of planning where you're trying to figure out who's doing what. One of the biggest questions that comes up is who's going to make all this extra stuff. So little Johnny's going to go into this classroom and little Johnny needs a visual schedule. Little Johnny needs this and this and this and this and this. And you see the accommodation list on the IEP and there's a question. Well, from a logistics standpoint, the director of SPED will come in, the State Department will come in, or whoever will come in will explain, hey, general education teacher, you are responsible for supplying all the accommodations. That's oral accommodations, that's small group accommodations, that's da 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 da, and the list goes on, right? So now you have a general education teacher who's hyperventilating because they've got five different students with special needs in their first block class. They've got eight in second block. They've got three in third block, and they've got to supply all these supports and accommodations for all these different children. And the accommodations are not the same because they are individualized. Meltdown moment, right? Well, here we go. When we are planning to include, we are making sure that all those people who are involved in making that IEP, who are involved in writing the accommodations, are taking some part of the planning factor into consideration, not just once a year, but every single week. They're able to go back and say, okay, Johnny has this accommodation. Let's see how we are going to implement it together. So it allows people to be working together on a weekly basis as it is related to a specific lesson plan, not just learning in general. So that's really cool about this.